Alright guys, changing out a kohler with a Briggs, it is possible and it's actually pretty easy. The reality is it just needs to have the same style connector, which is this one down here. It's tough to see. It's this white one right here. It's a 6-pin. Pretty much all the riding mowers have them, and the bolt pattern's the same. The only thing you'd really need is when you swap it out with a Briggs, make sure you have the Briggs and Stratton exhaust, because this won't fit. But you know, from that point you basically gotta undo the pulley, which I did. Sometimes it's easier to take the deck out, and then you'll have these bolts right here that hold the engine in. Alright, and there'll be 4 of them. Just look underneath the deck. And then you take the center bolt out for the pulley, which is this one right here. Get the belt off. And once all the bolts are out, you basically just take off your throttle cable to 5/16. You disconnect your fuel line. And then on this side, for this particular mower, we'll disconnect the bolt on here for the starter. That's the positive. And then make sure you disconnect the battery, and then we'll pull the motor out from there. Alright, looks like because of the exhaust, we're going to want to take this shield off. A couple of 10s on either side. I think it's going to come right off. We'll give it a shot. There you go. And it hooks just like that. Now the exhaust is free. Now we just got to get the connectors. Usually the one on the bottom there's a 7/16, and then just disconnect this connector right here, this white one. That's usually it. We'll see. Now we get the connector off. Get this off. Sometimes it spins the stud. You gotta get a pair of needle nose pliers and try to grab that. It actually helps to use an impact driver, a gun rather, you know, like that. And the pulley on this is really tight with the drive belt. So what I'm going to do is, because it's loose, is just lift the motor up off the pulley. And what we'll do when we put the new motor in to make it easier is put a couple of blocks of wood in here to give us a little bit of leverage so it doesn't hit the pulley and push it straight down and make it hard to get on there. So we'll do that. Let's take the motor out of here. Alright, so getting ready to drop the new motor in. This is the tough part because this belt is really tight. So you got to wrestle the pulley in there like it is in there. You see there's not much room. And then what you want to do is line that keyway up kind of close as possible to the position of the crank key with the motor facing straight forward. Because you got to kind of drop it in there and hope for the best. Sometimes it won't work and it's going to push this down and drop it out. If that happens, what I do is put a 2x4 here and a 2x4 here to get the motor up off of it, so there's not so much amount of the crankshaft trying to get in there. And then that way sometimes it'll sit on the 2x4s and push this down, and then from underneath you can kind of turn it a little bit to get it in there. You also want to put a bunch of WD-40 in there to help slide it in. So I'm going to try to do that now. Alright, so you see I got the wood on there on this side and on the other side. And then what you do is you want to rock the motor forward. And then you can see the crank, see how it leans? That's kind of the angle you want to be at for under here. And then you can wiggle it on, and once it's started, then you just lean the motor to one side, take that wood out, lean it to the other side, let it come back down on the base. Then you can spin the pulley till it catches the keyway and bring it all the way up and bolt it up. And then once you do that, you might have to use a pry bar, because what happens is the belt on the pulley wants to pull the motor back, so it won't line up with the holes. So that'll be a little bit of a fight, but you can use a pry bar in here, work it with your hands, get a couple of bolts lined up. Once you get 2 of them lined up, you're all set. So we'll do that now. Alright, we got the pulley in. Just so you guys can see, what you do got to do is move the steering over, because in this hole right here, that's where one of the bolts is for the motor. Right, and then you move the steering back over, and then this little indent right here is where the second one is. And then, you know, that one there is easy to get to. This one's easy to get to. A little bit of finagling. You know, I started the first easiest one, got the second easiest one, and then the other two line up. So they're tightened up. Now we can move forward with connecting everything back up to the motor. All right, so now that we got the Briggs engine in, remember we're replacing the Kohler, so the fuel line doesn't reach. So all I'll do is throw a fuel filter in there anyway, and then extend it to right there. All right, we got the fuel line in, and then what you want to do now is the throttle. So the way the throttle works is this rod, or this metal piece pushes this rod forward when you wide open throttle. And the reason that is you're going super wide open throttle is actually the choke. See? So set that up to be on the choke position, and then make sure you're holding this all the way back. So that's pushing against that rod, which is what activates the choke. And then tighten down your nut that holds the throttle cable in. Now over here on the electrical side, all we're going to do is connect these two. They can only go in one direction. See how some of them, all of them are circled, some of them have a U shape. And then this red wire, it just goes to the starter. So we'll connect those up. Alright, we get that hooked up. Now we're going to move to the exhaust. Just got to basically bolt it up right here. And then there's also a bolt down there on the head. And after I bolt it up, I'm going to check the way the exhaust shield sits on here. I might actually point this down. We'll have to see if everything lines up. Alright, we got everything in. Got the deck back on. Now all I got to do is change the oil, put the hood on. And the way you put the hood on is the exact opposite. You sit the hood hinges in here. You lift the hood straight up. Set it in here and then let it fall, and it will stay in place. And then we can put the lights in. See these two little bolts? They're hinges. And then they'll sit right inside these two pieces, and then drop them into the slots. Might have to push on with two hands to get them to fit. And you see they're in the slots, and that's what holds the hood up. It's going to be a little bit of a pain. Have it, and this usually sits like right here. And she goes. We'll change the oil and then make sure she fires up, take her for some test drives.